name is Mikel Koven. I am Senior Lecturer and Course Leader in Film Studies here at the University of Worcester, and I've just come out with a book called Blaxploitation Films, camera books. Well, Blaxploitation is the name given to a body of films that came out predominantly in the early 1970s, American independent or exploitation filmmakers producing a fairly wide range of film titles, but the period of Blaxploitation I do try to keep a very conservative framework on, and that's 1971 to 1975. What do you expect to see in a typical Blaxploitation film? The most common theme is sticking it to the man. You know, the man is got, as Melvin Van Peebles says, the man's got his foot up your ass your whole life, and this is the one time when we get to stick it to the man, to fight the powers that be, to fight the police, the army, the government, you know, however the man wants to manifest himself. This is about standing up for the little guy. Well, actually, I'll quote Fred Williamson, who hates the term blaxploitation or black exploitation, because he puts it as a black actor, he's working. How is he being exploited? He's getting money. He's able to put food on the table. The black writers and directors, when they were used, you know, were making a living for probably the first time in their lives in the film industry in America. So this whole notion of it being exploitation is according to Williamson, was an invention by groups like the NAACP, other advancement groups and consciousness-raising groups, but who were concerned with middle-class values, not working-class values. And the Blaxploitation films appealed to a working-class audience, not a middle-class. The middle-class were happy to see Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby on screen, when what most black people in America wanted to see in those days was Fred Williamson and Richard Roundtree. So while blaxploitation is the term that's given to these films, I don't know it's really an appropriate term. The exploitation in this sense refers more to the kind of marketing the film experience, rather than anything deeply unsettling within the film itself.
Damn, look like my women is on time. Baby, I could sure warm you up.
No shit, baby.
I can dig it. Dolomite is my name, and fucking up motherfuckers is my game. Breathing down your neck. Damn! Damn! Girl, this motherfucker's got rhythm, haven't he? I've got an all-girl army that knows what to do. They'll box as hell and practice kung fu. I put my finger in the ground and turn the whole world around.
You know, you're still the best man that I know in bed. I'm waiting for Dolomite.
For who? Dolomite, motherfucker. Starring me, Rudy Ray Moore, as Dolomite, and that bad D'Urville Martin as Willie Green. Dolomite. Dolomite.
My own fear on it was that it was exploiting stereotype, especially if it's being made. If it's been made by a group of black people, some people could argue it's okay to do that. But I personally think, well, is it okay to do that? And then again, if it's been made by white people, it's like, well, are they picking on that specific social group of people and exploiting that social group just to make money?
Mm-hmm.
So. Do you agree with this argument? Is it exploiting a stereotype?
I think it does exploit the stereotype to some degree. and stretches across black-made films as well as white-made films. But I think the question of, is it a negative stereotype or is it a positive stereotype? Is this a good thing for the black community? Is this a bad thing for the black community? Is an overly simplistic argument, and that real people of color or people not of color, watching these films are going to have a shifting and moving response to these films as the films run through the projector or as they persist through time. Our opinion of these films changes often while we're still watching them. We can agree with that, we can disagree with something else. And sometimes those things we agree with and disagree with will cross over later on in the film, or in another film, or in another viewing, or something like that. So while I certainly think blaxploitation picks up on stereotypes and plays around with them, seeing them as good or bad is just sort of a non-question. Yeah.
I know you wasn't a big fan of super badass Marvin P. Venables.
Well, now see, here's the thing, and I will say this on camera for the record. When I wrote the book you're referring to, back in 2001, I thought I understood blaxploitation. In the intervening 9 years or so, I've done a complete 180 on a lot of those films, where I think Ben Peebles' Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song is one of the highest achievements in American cinematic art. Here's a film that is uncompromising, won't take any shit from the man, and will basically give a big fuck you to the audience.
Every dollar we make, the Guinness get 20, the police get 40, and Goldbergs get 50. Anybody can tell you that don't add up to $1. That adds up to $1 and a damn.
No, I haven't seen Sweetback. I haven't seen the cat. I don't want to see him. You just keep leaning and leaning and leaning. Get the f*** from my back, man! I'm clean, man. Look, I'm clean. There's nothing there. Look! When I get pissed off, man, I will throw a not-your-bone nigger fit on you, understand? Leave! Split! Leave, mother!
You offer pretty good news to me, slapping up on some white cops. Yes, indeed. I'm gonna say a black Ave Maria for you.
Well, the short and slightly jokey answer is they're cool. I mean, these are cool guys. They've got any number of women, money, flashy clothes, flashy cars. Who wouldn't want to be like them? That's sort of a slightly glib answer. The real answer has to do with, I think, African American folklore and the role of the trickster figure. That the pimp, unlike the detective or the vigilante, the pimp figure really stands as a trickster figure in American culture. They are using all the aspects of the American dream, all the capitalism, all the quasi-democracy, but they're doing it for them, and they're not sharing with Whitey. And that's why it's on that side of the law. It's fine when the government does it, when Washington or Whitehall do it, but when the black man does it, it's illegal. And these films play up that double standard. A film like, which I don't talk about in the first one, but I do in the second edition, like Willie Dynamite, which I think is as good as any mid-70s crime film, like Dog Day Afternoon or The Godfather. I really do think this is a film at that level, is about trying to turn the pimp business into Fordist principles. Sort of have assembly line hose. Whereas one's starting to get a bit too old, you got the new one coming in, and trying to use that kind of industrial manufacturing model on the sex industry is just wonderfully satirical. as sort of an anti-capitalist film. It's a phenomenal movie.
Let me lay it on you, Willie. Alone, you always gonna have to take the risk. Your bitches will be pulled. The man will never put his hand in. You'll be crowded and jammed up from every turn. I like the competition. And I can deal with any heat. Also, you dig, the bitches I run are selected to win. I mean, I'm controlling some tough, aggressive, mean-looking animals. Now, can I tell them that they can only run in one part of the jungle? I got split. Cool, man.
Yeah, because a lot of those films, they kind of were kind of like the black equivalent of Godfather. I mean, a lot of them actually dealt with mafia figures.
Yeah. Like Black Godfather.
Yeah, Black Godfather and the one with Yafet.
Yafet Kodo.
Across 110th Street.
Across 110th Street. But also Fred Williamson again in Black Caesar and the sequel Hell Up in Harlem. Yeah, the gangster figure as an inverted businessman. And what you see particularly in a film like Black Caesar, Williamson's character is, yeah, he's living off of the crime within his neighborhood to some extent, but he's also giving back a whole lot to his neighborhood. This is black-owned business, and it's seen as illegal because it's not white-owned business exploiting a black neighborhood.
Yeah. Do you feel the way Black America is portrayed in these films is a fair portrayal?
I wouldn't know. I didn't grow up black in America. Well, I think the biggest one, which both Sweetback and Shaft started, was the fact that the American public are willing to see a black man in a lead role who wasn't subservient to some sort of white power. That's the biggest advance, that there's money to be made in the African American market. But if it wasn't, well, I certainly don't consider Spike Lee or John Singleton or Ernest Dickerson or any of those contemporary African American filmmakers to be blaxploitation directors. I do think it's on the backs of people like Gordon Parks Jr., or Gordon Parks Sr. and Jr., and Larry Cohen and Jack Hill, that filmmakers like Lee and Singleton were managed to make their films in the 80s and into the 90s.
So these films kind of, John Singleton did
Boys in the Hood.
Boys in the Hood, yes. It's obviously very different. There's a level of emotion.
Oh, it's a completely different kind of film. I actually got into a big argument with my publisher over the first edition of the Blaxploitation book because she wanted me to do a screening during Black History Month in London of Boys in the Hood as blaxploitation. I said, absolutely not. That is an insult to Singleton's film, which is an amazing film about the black community doing it for themselves. That is a theme that's there in blaxploitation, but completely different. You know,
yeah.
It's like, I don't know, you know, if there was sort of an Italian national holiday of showing The Godfather. You know, it's completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't do that for, you know, obviously from an Italian perspective, somebody would say, well, that's clearly racist. But it's okay to do that for the black perspective? That's not a double standard I'm happy with.
Yeah, I mean, they are kind of exploring the same sort of themes, but they're expressing them in very different ways.
Very differently.
Who's a black private dick that's a sex machine to all the chicks?
Shut!
Damn right. Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man?
Shut!
Can you dig it? cat that won't cop out when there's danger all about.
Shaft!
Right on. You say this cat is a bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
I'm talking about Shaft.
And we can dig it.
He's a complicated man, but no one understands him but his woman.
John Shaft.
Hey, what's happening, Marty? Same old sixes and sevens, Shaft. Two guys were looking for you like 10 minutes ago.
Harlem Cats?
How in the hell should I know? Everybody looks the same to me.
Take it easy, Marty.
Shaft.
I think the reason Shaft is as popular a figure as he is due to Isaac Hayes' amazing score, but also the fact that this is probably the one blaxploitation film white folk have seen. I don't think Shaft is that terrific a character. In fact, I would argue with this whole pantheon of black heroes sticking it to the man, Shaft is the man. Shaft is working for the man. He's not working. He may talk about Whitey and honky cops and stuff like that, but he's working for them. Yeah, he's private detective, but he's as much in the pocket as any lackey. So I don't see Shaft as being the great African American hero. Much better look at somebody like Youngblood Priest and Superfly, or Coffee and Foxy Brown with Pam Grier. Those are better heroes.
Yeah, so like Pam Grier in particular is very, very popular even to today. Obviously Quentin Tarantino, Jackie Brown.
If you had the chance to walk off with $500,000, would you take it?
Yes. What do a stewardess, a gun runner, a bail bondsman, an ex-con, a federal agent, and a beach bunny have in common?
You don't come in on this thing with me. You got to be prepared to go all the way.
They're all chasing $500,000 in cash.
It wouldn't even be missed.
$500,000 will always be missed.
Let him get the money and then just take it from him.
She trying to play your ass against me, huh?
That was fun.
Yeah, I'll be at the spot. So she ain't your girlfriend. Is that what you felt? Oh, I hope you felt appropriately guilty afterward. Afterwards, I did.
There's only one question.
Man, I ain't getting in this trunk.
You ain't gonna be in here no more than 10 minutes.
Man, I ain't riding in no trunk for no minute.
Who's playing who?
Let's make a deal. Yeah? So what's she gonna give us? Are you gonna offer to set him up?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do something stupid.
Pam Grier, Samuel L. Jackson, Robert Forster, Bridget Fonda, Michael Keaton, and Robert De Niro.
Is she dead? Yes or no? Is she dead?
Pretty much.
Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown.
In many cases, what the Pam Grier heroes offered to action cinema in general, let alone black action film in particular, was the woman doing it on her own. That usually the men in her life were incapacitated in some way and weren't able to help her or protect her. She had to do it for herself. And I wasn't there, I didn't grow up in this environment, but from what I have read, what I have heard, is that Pam Grier really spoke to a number of black women in America in those days. It was, that's right, we are the people who's keeping the community going. The men may be out there doing their thing, but we're the ones who are really on the front line. We're the ones who have to pay the costs. It's also significant, I think, that what Pam Grier tried to do in her characters, particularly things like Coffee and Foxy Brown, was to ground the character in as much believability as possible. So she wasn't a superstar athlete. She wasn't a kung fu expert. She was just an average person who had enough of the man. And everything she did was grounded in reality, including in Coffee, I think it is, where she puts razor blades in her hair. So comes the big cat fight, and this other chick grabs her hair. She's grabbing hold of the razor blades. That's apparently what a number of prostitutes did in order to bit of protection was to.
So she was still kind of, especially in terms of the film art, kind of portrayed as a, just kind of a sex object almost.
She is, but it's on her terms. It's always on her terms. And again, the first time I saw these films when I was writing the first version of the book, I'm sort of thinking, I don't see her as a feminist figure. She's as victimized as anyone. You keep, characters have to come in to tear open her top to show her breasts all the time. But again, with maturity and with going back to these films, again, they're still her breasts. She's using her sexuality, which is her main weapon, and she's using it to empower herself, not to empower some guy.
I like God, what's it called now? It's another female based film, Cleopatra Jones.
Well, Cleopatra Jones is great, but again, she's working for them. She is the man. In no uncertain terms, she's a special agent to the president. And yeah, I love Cleopatra Jones. It's a great film. And Casino of Gold, which I believe is co-produced. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the DVDs right there. Cleopatra Jones, The Casino of Gold, I think is co-produced with the Shaw brothers, the Hong Kong-based kung fu masters in this period. I'm watching Casino of Gold and thinking, this is a much better kung fu movie than it is a blaxploitation film. And as we're getting later into, or towards the mid-1970s, and blaxploitation's on its wane, we're starting to see more and more attempts at crossing over, of having sort of mainstream films. Fred Williamson also in the same time does Batman Bolt, which is trying to do sort of a black James Bond kind of figure. But again, it's not a blaxploitation film. It just happens to have a black lead.
It's funny, there's a couple of things you actually mentioned there. Is obviously blaxploitation did start crossing over into other genres, especially the kung fu film genre. Obviously Jim Kelly is probably like the most famous example, Enter the Dragon. What did black people see in these kung fu movies in particular that
I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's a question that I have, and I'm not even sure how to answer how to research to answer that question. I think there's several factors. One is that through African Americans being shipped off to Vietnam in the late 60s and 70s, that black people came in contact with martial arts, with Eastern martial arts, and brought it back with them. Secondly, it's not just a fighting style, it's a discipline and a way of building up the self-respect within the black communities through martial arts and through that kind of development of improving yourself before you start doing the big flamboyant fight scenes out of it. The third option, and I don't think this is a little one either, is it's a great excuse to kick Whitey's ass. That in the Hong Kong films, they're not white either. Getting tired of seeing the white man who's got all the power and all the guns, and now we can show you that the black man don't need guns. That was part of the attraction as well. So I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it's not white.
So it's kind of like a relatability.
Yeah.
The fastest, meanest, baddest mother ever to hit the big screen. He's quick, he's black, and he's back. Get ready for the punchingest, kickingest, choppingest dude on earth. Right on. The movie that grabs you and never lets go.
No. Black Dynamite gets away with it because it's trying to be a lost film from 1975. So it can do all of those things. When they've tried with the Wayans brothers, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, or Undercover Brother. I think it's more successful and I really enjoy it, but it's also problematic. The Hebrew Hammer, which is the first Jewsploitation film, using all those black icons, but Jewish, made Jewish. It's not that the language or the stereotypes or the culture has changed per se. I think blaxploitation was very much of its time. MGM, when it came out with its videos and DVDs of these films within the past sort of 10 or so years, they called it the Soul Cinema collection. And that notion of soul cinema, I think, is a better term for blaxploitation than blaxploitation, because the music is so much a part of these films. And with Curtis Mayfield and Isaac Hayes and James Brown, we're talking about soul music. Come the mid to late 1970s, i.e. when white people start buying the records, it becomes disco. And it goes from being R-rated or 18 certificate to PG-rated. You know, more kids, you know, a safe environment for the little white suburban kids to go see. And you know, what was Sweetback's Badass Song has become Roller Boogie. You know, that disco just sort of took over the zeitgeist in America. And so these films are just so much a part of their time. I wouldn't even call it a genre, I would really call it a film movement, a period when black filmmakers and black actors, you know, had an all too brief moment in the sun and managed to really change American cinema. Well, to some extent, I've answered that already. That this was the first and possibly best time when black filmmakers, black actors, and black crew members could make films largely independently. I mean, the studio system today. Here's another reason why blaxploitation could never happen now, is the film industry has completely obliterated the independence. You know, the only way to make independent films these days is to make them direct on DV, but then you're going to have to pay $10,000 to have it submitted to the MPPA in order to get a rating on it if you want to get it into Blockbuster. So there's so many layers that make it impossible for independent black filmmakers to really express the world from their perspective. Spike Lee, I'm not going to say Spike Lee sold out, I still think he's a remarkable filmmaker, but it's not coincidental that all of his films are now made with Universal, with Universal money, and have big casts, big Hollywood stars in them. I mean, The Inside Man, I think, was one of the finest films of that particular year, but it's not a Spike Lee film. You know, it's an excellent film, but it's not Do the Right Thing. It's not Malcolm X. It's not Crooklyn.
He hasn't got his own sort of identity in the
anymore.
film.
He had it, and I think he's just realized it's too impossible. I think possibly Bamboozled was the last Spike Lee film that, you know, he could be that independent with. And John Singleton, you know, a filmmaker who I loved, but has just done nothing since. Probably for about 10 years, probably Rosewood in '96 was probably the last great film that Singleton made. He does a lot of action films now, doesn't he? Very by the book. Yeah, Hollywood. Yeah, it's very by the book. It's because he needs the Hollywood money in order to do anything. Yeah.
I did say finally, but you did mention earlier music as well. I think it'd be silly not to mention music without when talking about blaxploitation. Obviously, like you said, Curtis Mayfield, James Brown. What was the importance of music? Because obviously now a lot of it's actually been sampled by modern rappers.
The music. I don't know. There's an energy, a social consciousness to the film, to the music rather. Curtis Mayfield is my favorite, and I've had this argument, sort of typical pub type argument. You know, people who say, you know, Isaac Hayes' Shaft soundtrack. Other people saying James Brown for Black Caesar, And I'm very much Curtis Mayfield for Superfly as the ultimate blaxploitation soundtrack.
Dark of night with the moon shining bright. There's a set going strong, lot of things going on. The man of the hour has an air of great power. The dudes have envied him for so long. Oh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by and by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions why. The only game you know is do or die. Ha, ha, ha. Hard to understand, but a hell of a man. This cat of the slum had a mind, wasn't dumb. But a weakness was shown, cause his hustle was wrong. His mind was his own, but the man lived alone. Oh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by and by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions why. The only game you know is do or die. The game he plays for keeps. Hustling times in ghetto streets, trying to get on.
It has that energy. It has that, not just that groove, that urban vibe, but it's about the black community. It comes from there. It's about sex and death and living and dying and doing whatever you can to survive. And I find, it's one of the problems I have with contemporary hip-hop is, how to put it, I don't feel it. Again, the soul music of the 70s was completely foreign to my upbringing. But when I listen to Curtis Mayfield, the texture of the streets, early hip-hop, from sort of the late 80s or so, including Public Enemy, there I've got the vibe. There I can see what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Ice-T as well. Those rather controversial ones. But today with the so-called R&B charts, it's
same
all
way
the
as
same.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
All by the book.
It's all very by the book.
Yeah.
We need somebody out there who's going to shake things up, the way Cop Killer did.
Yeah.
To get the man's foot out of our ass.